All right. So today's class is going to cover everything from Unit 3. So all of Hamlet. And then 12th night is actually going to get broken up into two different class sessions. Um, but a couple of things. So one, I posted a playlist of like 25 different videos. We are going to watch, I think, one of them again today, but it covers every single act and every single scene of Hamlet. I will say that I was watching the videos at the 1.25 speed just because she spoke a little slowly, but it's like it takes about 45 minutes to get through just all the act and scene ones. So I'm not going to play that whole thing for you. But again, it's a playlist that I linked in Google Classroom. And then when I post the video, I'm going to post all of the links that we use today because they're really useful for answering the questions that you're given for the tutorials. So let's take a look at that. So there's one video I am going to show you first because it's just the summary of everything that happened in Hamlet. It's just like a summary of the whole thing. What I will say too is that it actually goes really well with the final this final lesson activity from the second tutorial, where you're asked to do the plot diagramming. This like actually shows you while you're doing that. So I'm not going to re-show this video for this activity, but I will link the activity again in the notes after I post the video of class so that you have it, because again, I'm not going to re-show it, but just know that it really helps with this second lesson activity, the diagramming Hamlet one. So I'm going to play the video.
The introduction to Hamlet, like many of Shakespeare's plays, is an immediate immersion into action, with sentinels on guard at Elsinore, fearful that they will see a ghost that has appeared before. When Horatio joins them, they discuss their belief that it is the ghost of the dead king, whose brother has recently married his widow. The first scene of Hamlet begins with the appearance of the ghost of the late King Hamlet. In the rising action, Prince Hamlet's friends tell him about the appearance, and he goes with them to see the ghost. The ghost tells him that his uncle Claudius murdered him and that Hamlet must avenge him. In the meantime, we learn that Fortinbras seeks to avenge the death of his father, who had died in battle against King Hamlet some years before. After holding court, Claudius tells Hamlet he is mourning too much. Later, Ophelia tells Polonius of a distressing encounter with Prince Hamlet. Polonius thinks Hamlet's love for Ophelia is driving him mad and decides that he must tell the king and queen of this occurrence. They scheme a chance meeting between the two. When Hamlet and Ophelia meet, Hamlet tells her that he never loved her, leaving her distraught. Claudius and Gertrude decide they need to send Hamlet to England. Hamlet then sets up a play depicting Claudius murdering his father. While watching Hamlet's play, Claudius falls into a mad frenzy. On his way to speak with his mother after the play, Hamlet finds Claudius and nearly kills him. He hesitates because he thinks Claudius is praying. During the climax, he goes to speak with his mother, and during their argument, kills Polonius, who was spying on them from behind a tapestry. Claudius, now paranoid, sends Hamlet to England with a death warrant. In the meantime, it is discovered that Ophelia has committed suicide. After being captured by pirates, Hamlet plots his way back to Denmark and has Horatio meet him there. When they get back, they witness Ophelia's funeral and Hamlet and Laertes scuffle. During the falling action, Claudius and Laertes decide to plot Hamlet's murder at a fencing match, poisoning the sword and the wine. At the fencing match, Claudius pours poison into Hamlet's cup, but Hamlet does not drink from it. During the match, Hamlet strikes Laertes twice, and Gertrude drinks to Hamlet's health, unknowingly drinking the poisoned wine. As she dies, Laertes reveals to Hamlet that both of them have also been poisoned by the foil in Hamlet's hands. Laertes reveals the plot to everyone, proclaiming that the king is to blame. Enraged, Hamlet kills Claudius, stabbing him and forcing him to drink the poisoned wine. In the resolution, after everyone dies, young Fortinbras returns from Poland. Horatio tells him what has happened, and Fortinbras claims that Hamlet deserves a military funeral.
All right. So yeah, like I said, like it really shows you just like straight up, hey, here's the plot diagram, like, haha. So really useful for that particular set of lesson activities there. Okay, so now that you have kind of the idea about Hamlet, so the main character, Hamlet, and something that you'll get a really good bit of information about too if you go through that playlist. Sorry. Got another video for you that helps explain this, but so Hamlet pretends to be insane, or he actually goes insane. It just kind of depends. Like, people look at it differently. So I did find a video that helps support that, but it's just this idea of like, is he faking the madness or is it real? And so it's just kind of like what your opinion is, but I find that this video just sort of like clarified it, because reading Shakespeare can be hard, and then hopefully you use the No Fear Shakespeare as a tool to help you understand it if you read it, which I hope you did. It's really interesting. It's actually one of the best plays ever. So anyway, here is a video that kind of helps talk about Hamlet's madness, and I think it actually like shows you some examples throughout the play. So.
It was late in the evening. Actors Thomas Swan and Robert Harley are having a drink in the Duck and Whistle after a rehearsal of William Shakespeare's Hamlet.
Real fast. This is sort of like, it kind of sets it up. But they're going to have like a discourse about Hamlet's madness. This isn't actually part of Hamlet, just to be clear.
Here you are, Mr. Robert, Mr. Thomas, 2 more ales.
Now, Robert, the big question in Hamlet for me is... Oh, hello, Will.
Good evening, Thomas. Robert?
Will, about your character Hamlet, is he really mad?
Good evening, Mr. Will. Oh, he's a tricky fellow, that Hamlet. The way I see it, Mr. Thomas, is he's not really mad. He wants to find out who killed his father, and he thinks if he pretends to be mad, the killer will stop hiding the truth from him. Isn't that right, Mr. Will?
Indeed it is, Bess.
Hamlet says all sorts of crazy things about maggots in dogs and crabs walking backwards. No wonder everyone thinks he's mad. I'm a big fan of yours, Mr. Will.
Thank you, Bess. But if Polonius thinks Hamlet is mad, why does he say, though this be madness, yet there's method in it?
Well, I think, Mr. Robert, that's partly because some of the crazy things that Hamlet says actually make sense. Well, that's why Polonius thinks Hamlet is somehow in control of his madness. Because Hamlet says, "For yourself, sir, should be as old as I am."
For yourself, sir, should be as old as I am, if, like a crab, you could go backward.
Though this be madness, yet there is method in it.
That Polonius is an old fool. He doesn't know Hamlet's insulting him. I've seen all your plays, Mr. Will.
I know you have, dear Bess.
We'll leave them there for now. The name Hamlet is very similar to Hamlet, Shakespeare's son, who died at just 11 years old. It's possible that Shakespeare's grief influenced the outpouring of hopelessness and grief in Hamlet's speeches that follow the death of his father, the king. The modern version of the phrase, though this be madness, yet there is method in it, is simply, there's method in his madness, or her madness, or my madness. And it means there's a sensible reason for something that seems crazy. Take world snooker champion Ronnie O'Sullivan, talking about how his father introduced him to snooker. He said,
My dad's method in his madness was to try every sport and then observe what I liked. I played football, tennis, golf, cricket, but I love my snooker. She knows where everything is. Pretending Hamlet is.
I'm just trying to skip over that totally boring stuff.
So Hamlet isn't mad. He's just pretending.
That's right. Exactly. This is one crazy plot.
Mr. Will knows what he's doing. Believe me.
To believe or not to believe?
That is the question.
All right. So you can kind of like determine if you think it was, but based off of that and like what overall most scholars think is that he is faking it, like for the reason stated that he's trying to get whoever actually killed his father, like say something about it. But you know, to some extent, he might actually be going a little mad, like he lost his father. You know, he thinks that this person killed him, all that. So he could be sort of losing it, but not entirely. All right, that's why it's your opinion. Okay, so for this one, you get like all the answers. So question 1, 2, 3 are entirely answered for you on this soliloquy link that's linked in there. So without a narrator to explain characters' inner thoughts, how they make their true thoughts known. In drama, characters occasionally give soliloquies. A soliloquy, like a solo, one person alone, is a speech that is delivered while the speaker is alone. It is a speech about what the character is thinking, but not what a character would necessarily say aloud to anybody. So if in soliloquies, they are always truthful because it's their inner thoughts. So I think that's one of the questions. Yes. So question 3, it's always truthful because it's like, even there's nobody else around to hear them. So they're different. Oh, and then their purpose is to explain the character's inner thoughts right there. And then, so that's what the purpose is a soliloquy. Where's the other one? Okay, the difference between a soliloquy and a monologue. So a monologue is when one person is talking, but other people are there. Sometimes they might not know it. That happens in Romeo and Juliet, where Juliet gives what she believes is like a soliloquy, but Romeo is there and can hear her. So it's just like when one person is speaking, but there are other people there to hear it and reply. That's a monologue. It's just like a long time of someone saying something. And then a soliloquy is like, you can almost imagine that they weren't saying it aloud. It would just be like what's in their head. But because it's a play and we can't read minds, it's on screen for you. And then, so the final question here is about the to be or not to be soliloquy by Hamlet. So I am going to play just a reading of it. That's not true. So I'm going to play just an excerpt of that soliloquy with Kenneth Branagh reading it. If you're a fan of Harry Potter, he played Gilderoy Lockhart, but he's actually a classically trained Shakespearean actor who has acted in like a ton of Shakespeare adaptations. So I'm just going to play it for his voice reading it, and so you kind of get that feel, but I'm actually going to have the text of the speech up on the screen. All right, so here we go.
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to, is a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream, aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, a proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare falcon. Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life? But that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus, conscience doth make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment with this regard their currents turn awry, and lose the name of action.
I guess I just don't finish that little bit there. All right, so okay, so what may have been Shakespeare's perfect purpose behind the soliloquy? So why do you think that he has this? And so this is really a part where Hamlet is, because it's a soliloquy, right? So we know it's his innermost thoughts. He's really contemplating death. So to be or not to be, that is a question. Whether it is better to stay alive and suffer life, or to kill yourself. At the end, is it better to end the heartache of life that our bodies are, that flesh is hair too, so that our bodies always suffer the heartache, the thousand natural shocks. But is it better to die, to sleep, for in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. So it's just to think about the nothingness beyond death, like what comes after death, we don't know. And so that you have to stop and think before you kill yourself. There is a respect that makes calamity of so long life. So Like, people think that it's so great to live a long life, and then it just goes on like that, where he's basically weighing back and forth whether life is worth living or whether he should die. And then, is it bad to die for then leaving everyone to mourn after him, if he were to kill himself? So thus conscience does make cowards of us all. So I would rather, my conscience won't let me die. And then, yeah, so that's sort of what that point is. So it's to give us that inner view of what Hamlet is really going through right now. And to is, back to the, is Hamlet really insane? Like, not that contemplating, suicide makes him insane, but you can see that he is in a lot of inner turmoil. He's having a lot of pain over what's going on because he's really upset about the death of his mother. So, yeah, cool. All right, that covers the first tutorial. Okay, so again, we already covered the second part of this tutorial. So we'll look at the first lesson activity. So the table lists the major characters in Hamlet. I might have my videos just flipped. And then the second part is to examine the theme of moral corruption. So I have a video for both. Again, I'm going to link them. I think you get like 1 or 2 extra characters out of this, but it does cover all of these main ones. So Hamlet, Gertrude, Claudius, Polonius, Ophelia, and Laertes. So I'll play that and then I'll show you the next one. It doesn't necessarily point out the theme of moral corruption, but it talks about deceit, which is like part of it, and you can kind of like get where it's coming from. This is also something that you could look for more research for online. So we'll just play these back to back because it's a little bit easier.
Let's meet some of the characters from Hamlet. The title character is the 30-year-old Prince of Denmark, an only child. Hamlet is a gentle, deep-thinking, loving, and loyal man. He is not only intelligent, but also quick-witted, appreciative of his standing, and self-aware. Polonius, counselor to King Claudius and father to Laertes and Ophelia, loves his children, but he is willing to sacrifice them for his own reputation. He is scheming and conniving, often to promote his reputation at the expense of others. Claudius is the uncle of Hamlet, the new husband of Gertrude, and the new king of Denmark. Claudius is a deceitful, corrupt, jealous, and controlling man. Although refined due to his position in life, his true nature is revealed by the end of the play. Horatio is a loyal friend to Prince Hamlet. Horatio is also a student at Wittenberg in Germany. His role, which he performs well, is trusted ally and logical thinker. Horatio, by virtue of having Hamlet's trust and company, is often privy to the prince's more private thoughts and plans. Through Horatio, Shakespeare often gives the audience insight into Hamlet, too. Laertes is adventurous but obedient. He's a young man eager to begin his life. Laertes' name comes from Homer's The Odyssey. He has lived in France, and therefore he understands royal etiquette. Laertes is the gentle, loving older brother to Ophelia. Ophelia is the daughter of Polonius and sister of Laertes. She is also Hamlet's love interest. She is a young, bright, and gentle woman, comfortable even with those above her in rank, and she is devoted to Hamlet. Gertrude, Hamlet's mother, is the widow to old King Hamlet and wife of the current king, Claudius. A central quality of Gertrude's character is that she loves her son. and finally, the ghost. The ghost is the spirit of Hamlet's father, who has recently been murdered by his own brother, Claudius. The ghost tells Hamlet to avenge his death. He proves to be a benevolent ghost, not a demon. Let's explore 5 of the central themes in Hamlet. First, mortality acts as the central theme in Hamlet, which is why Hamlet contemplating Yorick's skull is so iconic. Mortality begins with the ghost, the contemplations of suicide, the grave, and Ophelia's funeral. What does Shakespeare say about mortality in this play? Primarily, he explores the concept as part of the cycle of life from both religious and secular perspectives. Second is truth versus deception, also expressed as reality versus appearance. This is prevalent in Hamlet and plays out in major ways, such as the deceitful way in which Claudius comes to power in the first place, as well as in smaller ways, like Polonius's willingness to spread terrible rumors about Laertes to investigate his own son's behavior. The play presents many characters who thrive on deceit and the situations that evolve out of it. Every scene and act contains examples of truth versus deceit. The presence of the ghost as a witness to the truth, or as a figment of Hamlet's imagination. The presence of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and their true spy mission in Elsinore. And finally, Hamlet putting on an antic disposition. Thought versus action is very significant in this play, as a life of action is a theme woven throughout Hamlet. Although Hamlet himself seems like a man of thought through much of the play, by the end, he finds the balance between the two. This suggests that Shakespeare's final idea on the topic is that the best approach to life strikes a balance between thought and action. From the outset, both Laertes and Fortinbras are foils for Hamlet. While Hamlet is depicted as a man of thought, the other two are depicted as men of action. In terms of madness, one could argue that Hamlet, Ophelia, and perhaps even Claudius have gone mad over the course of the play, which goes hand in hand with truth versus deception, because the audience doesn't know if Hamlet has actually gone mad or if it is feigned. Finally, revenge, the catalyst to many of the events in the play. Several of the main characters seek revenge, such as the ghost, Fortinbras, Laertes, and Hamlet. Ultimately, with the tragic carnage at the end of the play, Shakespeare could be making a case for the uselessness of revenge, but that could also be a 21st century viewpoint overlaid on a 17th century drama.
All right. So yeah, if you're thinking about like the theme of moral corruption and how that comes up there at Hamlet, like Claudius poisons his brother, the former King Hamlet, to become king. That would be a moral corruption. You just have, people lying and conniving, all these like things against each other. So there's a lot of moral corruption. These aren't good people, is where you're going with that. And then again, like I said, that first video with the summary really answers this for you, as far as like mapping this out. And then kind of you can think about where it says the climax is for Hamlet, and then you can think, was it the play, like things like that, all those different options, so you can take a stance there. And then the last thing that we have to really go over is our lesson activity, which I didn't pull up, so I'll just make another copy to my drive. Okay, so what you're actually doing for this is looking at that Act 3, Scene 1. So that is the one that we went over. Right? Okay, no, So, yeah, so we're just gonna, basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to YouTube and you're just gonna type in Hamlet Act 3, Scene 1. And then from there, you're gonna look for an actual like live version of people performing it. So whichever version you want, there's tons of different options for you, like across the internet. Try to make sure that you are not just watching the soliloquy. The whole act has more than just a soliloquy in it. So I think like these earlier ones, we'll cover that a little bit better. So you're trying to find 2 sources, and I need you to link the videos, okay? And then what you're gonna do next is compare them. So you're gonna compare what's similar between the 2 and what's different. A lot of times it's like costuming or set design because people are gonna interpret things differently. And then you're just gonna write an essay that compares the two versions on which one's better, what you thought about it, and that's it. That is the activity. So again, you need to find 2 videos because it doesn't make sense if it's anything other than the 2 videos, and it should be live performances of the entire Act 2, Scene 1, or I'm sorry, Act 3, Scene 1. Yeah, that'll take care of that, and then you'll be all set. But yeah, that's really it as far as Hamlet goes. So hopefully you found this helpful in terms of completing your work, and I definitely recommend watching that playlist that I will link again with this video.